All right. We have been looking very much forward to this very interesting webinar, very important webinar, due to this, among other things, due to the reporting season that we call it, that we have entered. I have three very introductory slides before I let our presenters get the word. So let me just share my screen. Now I have to share the right one to do this. And okay, you should be able to see the presentation as it is.
Perfect.
Okay, so the webinar on scientific publications and data, procedures for open access, storage, and reporting. We have three presenters, Anna, Clement, and Sevinch, and myself, I'm Lena. I'm the moderator, and I'm from Work Package 9, dealing with communication and dissemination. What is in it for you? Apart from knowing that scientific publications are really important indicators of progress of the EGP soil program, it's a very important dissemination and exportation tool. Then, as mentioned on the website and an invitation, this is to be for you to be on the forefront of the requirements from H2020. It's also information on how you create more impact with open access, how you fulfill the H2020 requirements, how you create long-term dissemination and knowledge sharing, what the procedures are and requirements of reporting, and what are the pitfalls to avoid, and also where do you find more information and guidance. So that's the what is in it for you. That's what we'll be covering in the three presentations, and most likely also with the questions that you will be asking. The three presenters, Anna, Clement, and Sevinch, I'll just briefly say what they are going to cover. Anna will be first from Work Package 1, the coordination team. And she will talk about open access of publications, underlining data sets, and presenting the actual requirements for open access to publications, also data sets related to these publications, and finally, different ways of achieving open access. Then Clement will start with the expectations in the matter of data storage and publications, and information on what kind of repositories that can be chosen and where to find these repositories, and the importance of providing metadata will be underlined by him. And finally, he will give some examples of the EGP soil Dataverse as a possible repository. And finally, Sevinch from Work Package 9, my co-lead in Work Package 9, she will presenting the reporting information on publications, scientific publications, which kind of publications are eligible to report, what are the important points that should be considered, and then show the actual reporting template. So that's a little brief presentation of our presenters and what they are having of good information for you. And then a little bit practical information. And as it has been mentioned several times, it's not only about the whole publication, scientific publication, but really open your ears for what you need to report in this end of this year. It has been a little confusing the past years, but therefore this is really important information. There will be time for questions. We've set out time for questions at the end, but also if you have some urgent question after each presentation, please raise your hand or open your mic and voice it or put it in the chat. That's a really good place. We'll try to keep track of the chat and answer questions there. If we don't get to answer all the questions verbally, then we'll make sure to answer them afterwards. We'll save it and we'll answer them afterwards. Okay, those were my words, and I hope you will have an enjoyable next a little over an hour with our three presenters, and I will forward the word to Anna.
Thank you, Lina. I am going to share my slides with you. Okay. Give me a second to get you back. Yes.
We see it well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming here. It's a great pleasure to give you some information on open access. Actually, I'm involved in work package 1, as Lina said, but also at Wageningen University in Research, I'm responsible for open education and open science program. So I have a lot of information on open access. I'll present some, but I'm sure you'll have questions. I'm not sure what questions you have. So what I thought is relevant, I will present, and we'll see later what other information you need. I will start with actually what is open access for Horizon 2020. It is providing online access to scientific information that is free of charge to the end user and reusable. So it means that it's publicly accessible and also has the work has an open license to it, probably the CC BY license, Creative Commons. When Horizon 20 is talking about open access, they mean open access for peer-reviewed scientific research articles. This is the major priority, and also open access for research data. And with research data, they mean data underlying publications, curated data, and also other data sets. I will come back to that later as well. So these two will be the topics of my presentation. Well, why open access? The Commission considers it important to make publicly funded scientific information available online at no extra cost to all researchers, the industries, and the public. In that way, we can build on previous research results, also avoid duplication of the efforts, and also having more possibilities for collaboration when you can read each other's work. And also open access provides transparency of the scientific process. And altogether also it is available to the people outside of academia. So open access to scientific publications. As I said, open access is mandatory to peer-reviewed scientific publications. There are two ways to create or to achieve open access in EGP soil, and I will show you both options. Option one is publishing your article open access with the publisher. It is a so-called gold open access. With that option, you at the moment that the article is published, it will be open access through the publisher's platform. There are different types of journals. Most of the journals are the traditional subscription journals that nowadays also offer individual articles to become open access. And for that, you have to pay extra costs, so-called article processing charges. Another option is when you, these are the open access journals. So they have an open access business model. So you pay for publishing in it and not for reading it. So all of these articles are open access. So please, when you publish in a gold open access, check whether your institution has an arrangement for central payment of open access. For example, at Wageningen University in Research, we have so-called big deals with the big publishers, and altogether we can publish in 11,000 journals open access without any extra costs. The costs for open access can be very different. They vary depending on different factors. One is that subscription journals have generally higher article processing charges. So for example, in a subscription journal of Elsevier, the costs would vary between 3,000 to 4,000 euros. Whereas you already pay as institution for the subscription. So it's a double costs actually what you then pay. For gold, for really open access journals, the costs are generally lower, but there it depends very much on the impact factor. So the higher, or the more popular the journal is, the higher the cost will be. But generally they are lower than in subscription journals. So when you check for the arrangements with the institute, you can do it on the publisher's website. Normally, you can go through to the open access page of the publisher, or you can check open access arrangements through your own institutions at the website of your library, for example. At our institution, we have a special tool where we can check what the whether there are deals for a specific journal by searching for a journal title. So when you need to pay for open access costs for your article, it's important that you actually include publication fees in the budget in advance. So you make a sort of estimation how many articles am I going to publish, and then you take it up in the budget of the work package or of the project. And if it's not budgeted, you can declare the costs of the fees, but you have to explain what happens, why it was not budgeted. So when your article is published, it's already open access, but this is not enough for EGP Soil. Horizon 2020 asks all papers that are published in gold open access also to be deposited in the institutional or other eligible repository. So there should be metadata available through the repository, and also the PDF of the article in open access. Why is that needed? It's because for the sustainable conservation of the article. If you, for example, if Wiley get bankrupt, doesn't exist anymore, then the articles cannot be found there anymore. So that's why Horizon 2020 asks all the articles to be archived in a sustainable way in an eligible repository. How does it look like? For example, here I took an example of the EGP Soil article, which is published in European Journal of Soil Science. On the left side, you see the page of the article on the journal, on the Wiley platform. You see it also on the link that it says onlinelibrarywiley.com. And you see that this article is published in open access with an CC BY license. So what is also needed is publishing this article in an repository. So what is done with this article? It is also archived in ETH Zurich Research Collection. The page you see is the page of the metadata, and you see also that the article is open access, and you can download the article from the repository. On the top, you see the link. You see that it's the link of the ETH Zurich. How is it done? I cannot say how it is done in your own institution, but most probably the library is responsible for archiving all the research output of their staff. For example, at Wageningen University and Research, we would harvest a Scopus and also store the publications of our staff in the repository. It could be that you have to take action on your own to make sure that your article is archived in a repository, but you have to find it out with your library. Sorry, I got to the wrong page. I'm still here. So you have to deposit your article in an institutional repository, and when you report your article for EGP Soil in the continuous reporting template, you have to report both links, a link to the publisher and a link to the repository. So that was the first option, the gold open access. If in case that it was not possible for you to publish article open access through the publisher, or you didn't have funds for it, and your article is not open access with the publisher, then there is another option left for making it open access. It is green open access, also called self-archiving. So what happens there? You provide open access through the institutional repository. It could be that there is an, well, Horizon 2020 says that it is mandatory to do it, and they allow for an embargo period of 6 months. And in case that the article is on social sciences, it could be 12 months embargo. Each publisher has his own copyright restrictions for publishing, and they may conflict with the self-archiving policy of Horizon 2020. For example, most of the publishers would not allow archiving final PDF of the article. They will only allow archiving a Word version of an article after it was accepted and before it was actually typeset and published. Also, embargo periods can vary. Generally, for example, with Elsevier, we see embargo periods starting somewhere between 12 and 24 months. So it's more than this embargo period. So what you would need to do is first of all check what the copyright restrictions are. For that, there is a database available. It's called Sherpa Romeo database. I also put the link in the slide, where you have an overview of the copyright restrictions by the publisher. For example, for the European Journal of Soil Science, they say that you can have open access only if you pay, of course, but let's see, accepted version is only, well, there is an embargo period of 12 months for publishing, for self-archiving, and you can do it in the non-commercial institutional repository, but it is an accepted version and not the published version. So what the solution that Horizon 2020 offers is that you ask for a permission from the publisher for self-archiving, indicating that this is the publicly funded research and you would like to self-archive a PDF of the article with a maximum embargo of 6 months. So they created a template letter to the publisher that you need to send in at the moment that you are offered an agreement where you give away your copyright to the publisher. So it is an addendum to the copyright agreement where you ask to a permission to deposit a machine-readable electronic copy of the published version, so the PDF, in an institutional repository. And then you can indicate that you need 6 months, well, embargo period, and 12 months in case it's a social sciences work. And then you hope that the publisher agrees with this addendum. In most cases they will, but I'm not sure that it's a rule. So this is how you can fulfill the requirements of the Horizon 2020. Then when you need to deposit it, you can ask your library to help you with that and deposit the article in the repository and make it open access according to the addendum. And again, when you report your article to the continuous reporting template of EGP Soil, please report the repository link and the embargo period. When you heard my story, it's obvious that you really have to consider open access options in a very early stage when you are selecting a journal for publication, so that you make life easy for yourself and have some options to choose from. And another thing what I wanted to mention is please be aware of predatory publishers. Since we have this open access publishing, a lot of new open access journals have started. Some of them are not of a good quality, and also the others are really predatory journals that pretend to be a good journal, creating a website and trying to get article processing charges from you without actually publishing your work. So altogether, think, check, submit. So consider your options, check what is the best for you, and only after that make a decision and submit your manuscript. So this is the part for the for publishing peer-reviewed articles. What about the data? What is expected in EGP Soil from Horizon 2020? So the grantees are required to take measures to make data open access. There are different gradations for data. The most important for them are the data and the metadata needed to validate results in scientific publications. So the so-called underlying data. These data have to become open access as soon as possible. Then you have another category of data, so-called other data, curated or raw data and metadata that you specified in the data management plan. And this data need to become open access at voluntarily basis. So it means that if there are possibilities to make them open, then you're encouraged to do so. So the policy is as open as possible, as closed as needed. When we are talking about the requirements for data underlying publications, the policies as soon as possible, it means that you are asked to deposit the data and the metadata in an eligible repository. It could be any repository, and Clément will focus on that in his presentation. A couple of things I wanted to mention is that when you deposit the data, you need to provide a DOI, a persistent identifier. In that way, also your data set becomes a self-standing publication. Also with it, when you're making it open, it's good to have a CC BY Creative Commons license with it. And once you deposited the data, then store the data, it's important that you link your data set to your article, and the other way around, you link the article to the data set. So it means that you need to think about storing the data at the moment that you write the publication, and preferably not afterwards. Well, in many journals, publishers will ask you also to provide data underlying the publication, and they will maybe offer you to store it as supplementary material on their platform. And this is not eligible for Horizon 2020. So you are asked to not store the data as supplementary material, but really store it in an eligible repository as a self-standing data set. The data management costs are fully eligible for funding. You can also budget them and declare within EGP soil. And well, this was a bridge actually to Clément's presentation, who will focus more on the data, but I wanted to give you some more information. The open access requirements and the guidelines for Horizon 2020 projects are available through this link, and then you can read them in more detail. Also, we've been updating EGP Soil Handbook with the latest information, and I was actually waiting for the feedback from you on this webinar with the questions you might have that we can include in the handbook. And after the webinar, we'll make the handbook available and send it well through the website so that you consult it. You can consult it. But also, if you have any questions regarding open access, also after the webinar, you can just send me an email. So this is what I wanted to present. And I don't know, Lina, if there is room for several questions.
There's room for several. There's a lot of questions in the chat as well, or a lot. There are some questions, but I think I can say that one of the questions in the chat is that we have is it possible to have a list of journals that are safe, and maybe we should put that in the handbook actually. But yes, there is room for questions, and then I'll let you take care of the questions in the chat afterwards.
Okay.
So,
well, maybe I can reflect very quickly on the safe journals. It's of course difficult to make a whole list of journals that are safe. It is rather that we can provide a checklist to see whether, with some critical questions, to see whether the journal is safe or not. Maybe that would be a better option.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? I am trying to see if I can find any hands that are up. We're almost 100 participants today, so.
Maybe a relevant question of Claire, because I think it's relevant to everyone. I didn't concentrate on that. Claire asks, do each author from EGP soil of a given paper need to deposit it in the repository of their own institute? In principle, it is not obliged by Horizon 2020. So at least one, well, the paper should be stored at least in one repository. But in reality, you will see that the paper is deposited in several repositories. And another question that, or another point that I forgot to mention maybe is when you select, when you go for gold open access, so open access with the publisher, and only the corresponding author or the author that actually submits the article can make use of the deal with their institute. So you can imagine, for example, I would be a fifth author of the paper, not the corresponding author and not the submitting author, but we have many deals at Wageningen. So we'll not be able, and the submitting author doesn't. For example, he's from CREA. CREA doesn't have any deals. Then the paper is not eligible for the deal in Wageningen. So if you really want to save money, you can think when submitting the paper, think strategically who would be the submitting author, depending on the possibilities with for paying the article processing costs through existing deals.
That's a good point. There is also a question from Heidi in Boko. She asks, to what extent is all this also required for social science data? There are often data privacy concerns around this.
That's for the data, I suppose, because for the publications it's not relevant. And I think that Clément will focus on that. Clément, will you take that up in your presentation?
But what extent is this also required for social science data?
Yeah, the privacy
I don't speak
concerns.
the privacy. I don't focus on privacy, but it is mentioned. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Maybe we should listen to your presentation, Clément, and then
Okay.
maybe some questions will be answered. And if not, then we have a question session after yours as well. So I will hand over the floor to you, Clément.
Okay. Thank you, Lina. Can you see my screen, my slide?
Yes, in the right mode.
Okay, great. So I will talk about data storage and how you can publish your data on repositories. So what is expected is you to deposit the research data in trusted data repository. So as Anna said, as far as possible, the underlying data, so the data needed to validate the results presented in publications, included associated metadata. And this is very, very important. I will talk about it later. And any other data, as Anna said too. So I won't repeat what she said. So projects must take measures to enable third parties to access, mine, exploit, reproduce, and disseminate this research data. It's like is to be in line with the FAIR principles. So let's talk very quickly about the data formats. You can publish any kind of data, any format of data, but it is preferred, encouraged to use open formats for long-term compatibility and for everyone to have access and can open your data when they need it. So the recommendations for the selection of repository for Horizon 2020 and so Horizon Europe is those. The trusted repository are recommended to have certifications such as Core Trust Seal, Nestor Seal, and ISO certifications, but it can also be domain-specific repository if they are internationally recognized and used and endorsed by the research community relevant to your project, to your domain, of course. Or it can be general purpose repository or your institutional repository, even if they have no certification, but if they present the characteristic of trusted repository, such as the security provisions, services for creation of machine actionable metadata, long-term preservation of data, and so on. So for general repository, we have Zenodo. I will present it very quickly later. And Recherche Data Gouv, which is for an institutional repository. And I will present it later too. So to choose a repository, you can research through the OpenAIRE, which is the open access infrastructure for research in Europe. It provides a list of repositories, and you have other useful listing of repositories. You can find in Registry of Open Access Repository, the Directory of Open Access Repositories, the Registry of Research Repository, DataBib, and some other probably, but I don't know them, all of them. What is required by Horizon Europe is when you deposit data in a trusted repository, this should be described with rich metadata in line with the FAIR principle. So the FAIR principles, to remind you, is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And this is really, really important to keep that in mind. Maybe the most important is the findable, accessible, and reusable, and the reusable is about metadata. So metadata, I will talk about it because this is data about the data, and this is what describes and explains the data, whatever its type. It informs the data user on its content, on the access and use conditions, the validity, the use constraints, the agreements, everything. They are necessary to reuse the data, and it is very important to publish them as rich as possible. That's what is expected by Horizon Europe projects. So you have several types of metadata, we could say. Citation metadata, domain metadata. The metadata will describe the dataset, the whole dataset. So, or you can cite the author, the title, and so on. Some specific information on the dataset. If it is special data, you have the coordinates. Life science, you have other type of information. But all those data won't describe the data itself. It is the dataset, but to describe the data, if you have a table, if you publish a table, for example, you have to explicitly define the columns names, for example, their contents, and if you have measurements, the date, the unit, the method, every information that can be useful for the user. If you want to know what mandatory metadata are asked in Horizon Europe or Inspire, you have a list here. I won't detail it, but as you can see, Inspire asks a lot more of metadata, but it is really recommended to fill the more metadata you can when you publish your data in your repository. So here are the citation metadata, the title, the link, contact affiliation, everything to describe the dataset and cite it. For the soil data, you will have to describe geospatial metadata. Those are mandatory for Inspire, but not in Horizon Europe yet. It is very important to provide this data, this metadata. And finally, I wanted to show you that in fact you don't you're not obliged to provide term of use citation requirements, but it is very, very important, because if you don't fill this this metadata, in fact you won't save time, because if anyone would like to reuse data, they will contact you, they will ask you those information, and maybe in 10 years from now you won't remember what are the terms of use. So if you publish metadata, publish as much as metadata as you can, as you have. You can put yourself, and I think everybody has been in the case of having a data set with no metadata, and you are not even able to understand what are the columns names, and where the data comes from, or what is the date, or what is the unit, and you have to seek it yourself. So put yourself in the place of a person who would reuse your data without any other information than those you provided with the dataset on the data repository. So don't limit the metadata to the mandatory ones. Be as exhaustive as possible and provide a data dictionary with your datasets. It can be a TXT document, like a README. It is really, really important to describe the content of the datasets. To help you, the Research Data Alliance provides a metadata standards directory that can be searched for discipline-specific standards and associated tools. So once the data and metadata are published in a trusted repository, the job is done, in fact. And remember that published metadata is at least as important as published data themselves. In fact, you can publish metadata without publishing the data if it is a matter of sensible data, of personal data. You can still publish the metadata. There is no problem with that, and it is expected. So now I will present you, as I said, two data repositories. Zenodo, which is a global purpose repository. It is an OpenAIRE and CERN collaboration. It's an open source web application which is built on the InVio Digital Library and hosted by the CERN on their own servers. Metadata on this repository is openly available under CC0 licenses, and all open content is accessible through open APIs. It permits fair data exchange and provides standard metadata formats such as MarkXML, Dublin Core, and so on. A limit, but we'll see that the other repository I will present as the same, is a limited file size at 50 gigabytes, but file amount is not limited. So I think that maybe a lot of you already use Zenodo, and it's OpenAIRE compliant, of course, and is a really good choice to publish data and metadata. Another solution is an institutional data repository. It's a French National Research Data Repository, and we already created a Dataverse specific to EGP Soil. So the goal is to propose to French research teams and their partners. So in the GPSOL, you all are partners of INRAE and French research teams to store and publish data with open source, let's say, and especially with European projects such as GPSOL. It is also a web application, and it is accessible for any internet user at the link I put on my slide. And it's based on the Dataverse project that I present quickly. So just like Zenodo, it's an open source web application. It has been developed at Harvard Institute for Quantitative Social Science, and it allows to specify usage license conditions, which is really important when you publish your data. It also permits fair data exchange and is also OpenAIRE compliant for European open science needs. So the structure is, you have the Dataverse repository, so the software installation, and in this you have, it hosts Dataverse, other Dataverse. Well, it's Dataverse in dataverses in dataverses. Each Dataverse collection contains datasets, and each dataset contains descriptive metadata and data files. And as I said, a Dataverse collection may contain other Dataverse collections, so you can have a hierarchical classification of your information. So when you publish datasets, when we, excuse me, when you store a dataset in a Dataverse, you're not obliged to publish it, but it has a digital object identifier, which is expected, and the datasets are described by metadata. There are some metadata that are mandatory, but as I said, you should provide as much as metadata as you can. So dataset access can be limited. You can version your data and metadata. You can modify and edit it anytime. And something important is that you can push your datasets on the portal, but not publish them. So you can store data, you can store your work, but without giving any access, any open access. It is a first step. You can work on your datasets, store it on the Dataverse, but wait that the publication has been edited, for example, to publish the dataset. So published dataset can be searched, visualized, and downloaded by any internet user. But if you haven't published your dataset yet, it won't be found, but you can still share it with your partners using a private link. So we already created a specific GPSOL Dataverse that you can use. We created sub-dataverses in this Dataverse, one for each internal call project, one specific for work package 2, one specific for work package 6, which are expected to have a lot of datasets. And it is administrated by Christine Lebas, which is present with us today, I saw, and myself. So you can contact us if you want to use this solution to publish the data you use for the GPSOL project. And for example, the landmark project, which is not French, led by French teams, which is not INRAE, uses the Recherche DataGouv, the French Recherche DataGouv portal to host its data. If you want more information about how you can publish and what is expected in Inspire and Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020, you can report to those documents, which are available online. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Clément. So we have time for a couple of questions. If you will, well, maybe you don't need to answer. It's just easier to see if anyone has questions.
I will
Share
go
your
to
screen.
okay.
Perhaps I could answer the question.
Sure.
I don't remember the name about the privacy on the data and the fact that some data cannot be diffused or disseminated. Open access of data, it's the general rule, but of course there is a restriction, legal restrictions. And if your data have legal restrictions, you are not obliged to put the data in open access. But you have to, what Clément said, you have to say that the data exists. You have to describe at least the metadata with the author, the title, and so on. And you have to say why the data are of restricted access. It's the minimum, in fact. I hope I am clear.
So far, there's no indications of otherwise. I cannot see any hands. So if you do have a question, and just unmute and ask your question.
I have also a remark about OpenAIRE, because for the USO, the European Soil Observatory, I made a query of OpenAIRE about European projects, and I saw that there is few European projects where in OpenAIRE you see that there is data, and discussion with I don't remember the name of the lady from REA, was about the harvesting of the institutional repository by OpenAIRE. So if you use your institutional repository, you have to be aware of the way of entering the information about the project, the name of the European project, the grant number, and so on, to be in line with what is needed by OpenAIRE for harvesting then your repository, to be sure that your data set will be comptabilized. It's not English, I see. In OpenAIRE.
Okay. Claire, would you like to come with your comment verbally?
Well, I could, but it's not, well, I want to say that it is really up to you to select where you deposit your data. It has to be permanent, and the rules have been given to you, but it can be Zenodo, can be a permanent repository of your institute, if your institute has one, or it can be the gov.1, the INRAE one. We considered that as the coordinating institute we had to provide you for a solution. You're not obliged to use it, but we think that, yes, we had to. So up to you. Sophie has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. I wanted to ask how this has been handled so far in EGP soil and whether all the metadata are already available somewhere on the server, or from which time point onwards do we have to stick to these rules?
So maybe I'll let Clément to answer. I will complement if needed.
Yes, can you hear me? Yes, I did not mute. So the metadata is up to your dataset, to your own dataset. So it's up to you to publish it when you publish your dataset. The list of the mandatory metadata is in my presentation, is in the documents I specified, and then it will be up to the repository you will choose, and the standards metadata you will choose. DataCite have a lot of metadata needed, mandatory, but on the Dataverse, the French Dataverse, for example, there's just a few metadata which is mandatory. It will really depend on what repository you choose to use. I don't know if I answer the questions totally.
Yes, I understand that so far for all the publications, all the metadata are already available. Is that so?
If the publications are published, yes, they are with metadata. Even if there is just a few metadata, but you can publish anything without metadata at all on a repository.
Okay.
Maybe I will
Frederic?
add
Oh.
as an answer to Sophie. You asked when does this start? Well, I would say it started yesterday or the year ago. It's a major change for a community. Some scientific communities are ahead compared to us, but it's a major change. And you may have noticed that the European Commission is asking that, but not only the European Commission. Now national funders are also going towards open science and are asking more and more. So it's, for us, it's a change, it's kind of a revolution, but I hope that EJP soil will rather help us to do it. We have to do it anyhow. Well, it's complex. I'm learning as well as you, but yes, we have to make those changes. We have to learn about this. So it's.
Frederic, you have a question?
Yes, just two small questions. Because we used Zenodo for ISAMPE last year. Just one question for the research group. Is the DOI changing when we are updating data? That's one question, because I think in Zenodo it's changing. And another one is, I see an ISAMPE sub metaverse, dataverse elements. Is there a control access to publish on that, or every partner of EJP can do that? Every other user, I don't know.
For the first part, Christine can confirm, but when you version your datasets, it won't change the DOI.
If you want to have another DOI, you have to create another. But if you update the files, or if you change update the metadata of the dataset because you find a mistake or you want to complete, then in Dataverse the DOI is not changing, but there is a versioning. That means that in the citation you will have the number of the version that will be changing, and in the Dataverse you have all the version available. That means that somebody can go to see what was version 1.1 and what is the difference with the version 1.2, for example.
And for the second part of your question, it is for now for the EJP soil Dataverse, Christine and I that provide the access to the editing part of the datasets. So if you want to publish on the Dataverse, you contact us. I provide you the rights, contributor, editor. There are several types of several levels of rights you can have. And if you want to be the only one to edit, we can do that.
In fact, you have first to create an account on the Dataverse that can be created for everybody. And then after you can ask Clément or I to give you the right of creating a data set in the different dataverses that what was created for EGP Soil, because we have a Dataverse EGP Soil and inside dataverses for each internal project, for example. So it's up to you to say, I want to create a data set for the project, I don't know, Carbosec, for example, and then we will give you the rights to create a data set in the Dataverse of Carbosec.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, I have a remark about Maria Fontapi said there was a metadata template from Feni Van Egmond. It's not the same metadata information. So it's what's Feni Van Egmond's created. It's a metadata template to make a list of available datasets. But it's not the metadata describing datasets as Clément show us.
Okay, that's an important clarification. Yeah. All right. I think we will save further questions on this subject for after the last presentation by Sevinch on publication reporting and data. So Sevinch, you let me know when. Oh, you are sharing your screen. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I think you can see my presentation.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Line. Lastly, in my last presentation, I will mention about the reporting period of EGP Soil publications, what is going on, what is news, and I will mention briefly about these topics. As Lina mentioned, scientific publications are part of our communication dissemination activities and is recognized as a very important indicator of EGP Soil or EGP Soil activities. Normally, reporting period starts November, and between November and January, we are preparing our report and we are sending the template submission to the coordination at the end of January each year. But because of the increasing number of the publication, we thought that we will do this process every 6 months during the year. So we will send soon a reporting template, the first for this year, and then you will receive the second one in around July or August, next July or August. Reporting responsibility, as you know, belongs to a national communication representative and project communication representative mainly. Which scientific publication are eligible for EGP Soil? And there are two main criteria here. And then the first is scientific publication should be produced from EGP Soil activities, or second is scientific publication should be funded by EGP Soil budget for eligibility. As you know, we have two main activity areas in the EGP Soil program. The first is work package activities. A second is project activities that we can produce scientific publication. According to for the reporting, we use the concrete reporting template coming from the H2020 guidelines. In these templates, 5 types scientific publication defined. These are article in journal, second, for instance, publication in conference proceedings and workshop. And the other is books and monographs. Chapter in books also are in the scientific publication. Thesis and dissertations, also the scientific publication. And newly, we have added others section in the template, and I will explain next why we added this. One of the important point is the acknowledgement for the eligibility. And then you see here 3 different scientific publications produced from the EGP Soil Program activities. All of them are eligible, and they stated their relevance with the program properly in paper and in the relevant paper. The first is first publication produced the EGP Soil Summit project results. The second is funded by EGP Soil funds, and not from the EGP Soil result, but funded some funds used by EGP Soil budget. The third is mentioned that this work benefited from collaboration established in the framework EGP Soil project. It means that there are 3 different publications, but all of them are eligible, and the publication when the publication produced, this relevance should be stated in this section. Otherwise, we cannot consider this publication as an EGP Soil publication. We have a template, concrete template, and then as you see in the screen, and then we are revising this publication according to new requirements that Clement that mentioned by Clement and Anna, and each row belongs to separate publication. The required information is not very complex, and then type of the publication. Some of columns has the drop-down menu, and then you will choose the proper option here. And then title of the scientific publication, DOI number, ISSS number, authors, name of authors, title of the journal of the equivalent, this, number, date, publication, place of the publication. It means that link of the publication journal, year of the publication, relevant page, and then you will see there is a question, the publication open access or not. If open access, if it is open access, green open access or gold open access, we will add here some column for the repository link and for the repository link mainly, because as Anna mentioned, it is mandatory for the peer-reviewed publication. Peer-reviewed publication. For the reporting time, as Anna mentioned again, it is not mandatory for the reporting time, but we expect to create for the peer-reviewed publication repository link as soon as possible. It means that if you will report open access, any open access publication, you can indicate in your template and you will say repository we are working on to create a repository link, or if you have repository your data under the repository link, please put your repository link on the table. There are some important points here. You can see a graph that shows our total number of the scientific publication within produced EGP Soil program. As you can see, there is an increasing, increased number as we expect. And then I would like to mention here in 2021, 9 scientific publications reported through this template to us. But when we go to Web of Science and when we search through the Web of Science, we saw that we have 13 EGP Soil publications are eligible and can be reported. It means that 4 scientific publication missed, and then we expect this scientific publication in this year's table because we can submit missed publication in the coming years. Why we are expecting? Because we consider the total number of the yearly reporting is important, but if we miss some publication, please, for instance, from 2020 or 2021, please include this publication also in your template and report us. If you have publication does not comply with the specified classification that I mentioned, and we have 5 scientific publication classes, please consider it as other, and please register on table and send us through the reporting template. Because we will place this publication two main areas. The first is we will report to the REA through the AC portal. This is the one place that can be placed for them. The secondly, it is important to publish this publication, this EGP soil publication on the EGP soil website for the knowledge sharing. And then, as you know, this scientific publication is very important tools to reach or to deliver our EGP soil results beyond EGP soil program, and to share our results with the community outside EGP soil community. This is my last slide, but I would like to say about EGP soil special issue. We are publishing an EGP soil special issue under the European Journal of Soil Science, and then you will see, I think, the journal website this issue. The topic is this special issue: climate smart sustainable agriculture soil management for the future. We would like to kindly invite you to submit your scientific publication. Submission will start 21 November and then till end of May 2023. I think we will give a more detailed information soon through the website or through the ECR, NCR, and PCR. Thank you for your attention. And lastly, I would like to say, if you have any question about during the filling the scientific publication template, please contact with me that you want anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Sevinç. From concerning the publishing or uploading the scientific publications on the website, I will just add to that and say it is very, very important that you, whenever you have published publication, that you send me the link to it, you send it to me so that I can upload, I can put it on the website. You don't have access yourself to do that on the website, but it's, if you don't send it to me, I may not know that it exists. So it's very, very important that you notify me, you notify Work Package 9 that now we have a publication, let's put it up on the website. So please keep that in mind. Okay, actually, I will ask, because for the presentation and the overview of this special issue, I will ask Sophie, did you get the 2 slides? Would you like to just present it?
Yes, thank you, Line. Should I share my screen, or do you
can
have
share
it?
your screen, yes. It's just so that we get it with on the recording for later, and it makes a little overview of what Sevinç just said.
A minute.
To do a little more promotion of the special issue.
Can you see it now?
We can.
Okay, so thank you for this opportunity to say a little bit more. Thank you, Sevinç, also for your announcement. This summer we have been, Claire and Lars and myself have been talking to the editor-in-chief of the European Journal of Soil Science, which is a very well-established journal. And the editor is very keen on having this special issue on EGP soil. And they are also open not only for original research papers, but also for opinion papers and yes, articles that set also visions for future research priorities. And yeah, so Raja and myself, we have set up a questionnaire, short, just 5 questions. If you are interested in contributing to this special issue, then you can express your interest here. The special issue will be set up along the lines of the expected impacts. And you are also invited to forward this information to other potential authors within your surrounding and your research institute. So if you have any questions, so please contact myself or Rajasekaran Murugan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Okay, do we have questions for Sevinch about the reporting of the scientific publications? Or any actually at this point?
Line, I saw some question on the chat. Actually, I was writing answer. Alessandra asked, can the project handbooks be inserted as other publication when inserted in a public repository? I think so, yes. And if this project handbooks can be published on the website, it is possible. We can classify as other publication.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. It's clear to me.
Good. All right. Well, we will open the floor to questions about anything that you may be wondering about, you're still not sure about. This is your chance. Well, you can also write to us afterwards. Doesn't seem so. Let's just check the.
Line, may I add something that I forgot during my presentation?
Absolutely.
For the joint publication, and then to submit this kind of publication through the report us belongs to the corresponding institutions. But if the corresponding institution outside of the EGP soil community, then one of the EGP soil partners can report this kind of publication.
Mm-hmm. There's a question in the chat also, should we send it to work package 9, the information about the publication, even though you report it in the continuous reporting file, meaning the end of year reporting? Well, if it's a publication, if it comes out in March or in June, we want to announce it, we want to show it, we want to promote it. So yes, please. At any time, it would be at the end of the year in January. We're all very busy with the technical reporting, and we may oversee putting specific focus on something. This is news. This is nice. This is dynamic attention that the publications get. So please, yes, make it part of your procedure that when you have published something, let us know and let us help you promote it and put it in connection with everything else that goes on.
Marie asked to elaborate my last comment, and I would like to say that sometimes, not sometimes, usually we produce the scientific publication jointly, more than one institution. In this case, to report principally report and then this kind of joint publication corresponding institutions. If this is corresponding institution within the EGP soil committee, this institution can report. If the corresponding authors or corresponding institution outside of the EGP soil committee, one of the EGP soil partners of this publication can report. I say this because we request some repository link, etc., for the peer-reviewed publication, and there is maybe they can be some confusing who will take this responsibility within the EGP soil committee. I would like to just clarify this, Maria.
All right. Anna, Claire, would you like to say something final? Doesn't seem to be any further questions.
Okay, well, maybe. So thanks to all the team who prepared this webinar. I think it is really useful. As I was saying, we are in a changing period. We have kind of a revolution to make in the way we work. It's not always easy, but thanks a lot, because I think it really helps us. And it is up to you also, colleagues from the EGP soil, all participants, to feedback on what is useful in terms of being helped to progress, to change, whether additional other webinars would be useful. Yes, I would like to say related to that. So you have heard of data management plan for projects, for the program. We are working on this, and this is something, for example, that, to be honest, I have been perceiving so far as an administrative constraint, and I'm beginning to understand that thinking of how you manage your data can help you to do better research that is traceable, that is that is fair. And so we will come back to you on this, but yes, do not hesitate to tell us what is useful to help a whole community to go through this change of ways of working. And thanks a lot again to all who prepared and to all the questions. I think it really helps.
Yeah.
So, and I will try myself for my own publications
thank you so
to go
much,
through
Claire.
all this.
And I just want to mention that, as you know, the webinar has been recorded. I have been saving the chats, and we will make this accessible on SharePoint. I'll create a YouTube recording of video of the recording, but with a link so that it's not for everyone, since it is an internal one. I'll send it out as I sent out the invitation to it, and please distribute it to anyone within our consortium that you may think you should take a look at this for further information. And it will be on a folder on SharePoint as well, that we probably will call the folder, we'll call it scientific publications information, something like that. And I'll tell you about that in the link when I send it out. But if you talk to a colleague who wants to know more, you are more than welcome to distribute that link. We just don't want it outside accessible for anyone, since it is an internal
and
webinar.
Possibly the PowerPoint presentations.
Oh, yeah. The PowerPoint presentations will be in that folder as well. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. This is a webinar or a meeting that did not go over time. We still have 5 minutes left, so you can relax a bit, get some coffee, prepare for lunch, whatever you need to do. And as we go along, if we have updates to the whole procedure and new rules that we need to abide to, we will create a follow-up webinar if that's necessary. Have a wonderful day, and see you all soon.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Very much.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.